Hey everyone, welcome to Locked On Lakers for Wednesday. Brian Kamenetsky, Andy Kamenetsky. No moves for the Lakers this offseason. Does that mean the team is bad? That's next.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks to everybody for making Locked On Lakers first listen of every day, Monday through Friday. No matter how or where you get your podcasts, it's always free. It's never behind a paywall. And Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where 24,000 plus subscribers are all frustrated, Andy, that the Lakers haven't actually made any moves this summer. But they're wondering, does that actually mean that they're bad? That is a big question. I think there's been potentially some overreaction to the lack of movement, or at the very least, equating the lack of movement with the actual team being really bad. So we will discuss that momentarily, but only after I tell you that today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. So, I mean, I think it's fair to say, Andy, that people are frustrated. And it seems to me, at least, that frustration is potentially coloring people's evaluations of the roster itself.
Yeah, I think the idea for talking about this came in part because I've seen other people who cover the team sort of delve into this as well, but also you and I in talking about the moves that we think they could make, they should make, that they can make, because as we've discussed a lot, they don't have a ton of optionality at their fingertips. And also, too, they don't have a lot of expendable contracts.
Right.
Like they don't have, a lot, if really any, mid-sized contracts that you can move without really noticing. The example people bring up all the time as far as like teams going all in most recently was Dallas, when they attached first-round picks to Seth Curry and Grant Williams and Rashawn Holmes, and turned those guys into Daniel Gafford and PJ Washington Jr. And it made a big deal as far as that run to the finals. And obviously kudos to the Mavericks for doing that. And, there are other things that helped. Full season of Kyrie and Luka, drafting Derek Lively II, bringing in Derek Jones Jr. as a veterans minimum free agent who's among the best veteran minimum free agent acquisitions in recent memory, is like there with like what the Lakers did with Malik Monk. But what I think gets lost in the way people talk about that is, yeah, the Mavericks were willing to surrender first round picks, and that requires a certain amount of dedication, but also too, the guys that they traded were not in the rotation. They were not guys who mattered. So it was easy.
Or, depending on how you feel about Grant Williams' spot, getting very unpopular within the organization.
Right. Grant Williams, they wanted Grant Williams out of the rotation in the sense they wanted him out of the building and maybe even out of the state. Like they did not, maybe out of the time zone. Like they did not want the guy around anymore. But and because the Lakers don't have a lot of guys like that, on one hand, again, it reflects the difficulties that they have in improving the team, but it also speaks to the idea of those guys aren't bad. D'Lo, Rui, Vando, if healthy, Gabe Vincent, if you believe in what you saw from him in that final season in Miami, in that run to the finals, or to the degree that you consider him movable, or not, he is very movable, willing to part with him, Austin Reeves. Like, these are all guys in the upper part of the talent echelon for this team. And that makes it more complicated to move them, but also it reflects the idea of, well, they couldn't be that bad, or else you just say, get rid of them.
It's interesting because LeBron, and we mentioned this for Tuesday's show, LeBron talked, at his USA basketball stuff. I think this particular thing was in the interview with Dave McMenamin, but I think it came up in a couple other spots, that he doesn't feel the Lakers are far off. And it's funny, like, you go back and you look at it and it feels like they're treading water and it feels like they're not very good. And they won 47 games in a brutally difficult conference last year. And that is with, that stretch post IST where they were just awful. They had some good, decent stretch going in, obviously during, and then, to finish the season, were one of the better teams in the West. But, it's hard to win 55 games when you have a stretch, whatever it was, 3-13 or 3-11, whatever the win and loss was there. So, the record was pretty good. And, to do the glass half full thing, the Lakers won 47 games. They did it while with a healthy LeBron and AD for the most part, a very discombobulated and injured supporting cast, filled with guys that, as it turned out, like Jared Vanderbilt, in the case of me, other people may have underestimated how vital they were to the rotation. Like, losing Vanderbilt could hurt. I didn't have the scope of just how much they were going to miss Vanderbilt, how much not having Gabe Vincent available impacted the rest of the rotation, stuff they were going to be able to do. Like those kinds of long-term injuries and people in and out of the lineup and all that, not having Christian Wood available. And these things were really important. They probably were more important than they maybe should have been, but they were really important. Rui in and out of the lineup, particularly early. And they still won 47 games. So that to me is something to look at. And then you add to it, Andy, coaching. So, how many games do you think the average Lakers fan thinks the Lakers lost because of coaching?
Well, if they won 47 games, I would say they thought they probably lost 35 because of Darvin.
82-0.
I do think there are some fans who think Darvin played a role in all 35 losses.
That is
I would say
ridiculous, Andy. At most, you're talking 25. It would have been 72-10.
But okay, here's the thing, though. I do think you can point to a handful of losses that could have been wins had Darvin just decluttered some of the complications in his mind and went earlier to the lineups that felt most obvious to everybody, including the players themselves.
Yes.
There were issues that were out of Darvin's hands, Rui being injured a lot at the beginning of the season, Vando unavailable, like Gabe Vincent unavailable for basically the entire year. Like those are issues outside of Darvin's control, but the resistance that he seemingly had to running it back after talking about the value of continuity struck many folks, including us, and again, the players, as very, very strange. Let's just say they get 5 wins out of that. You're talking about a 50-plus win team. That would not mean that you would make no changes for this team or that you would consider them automatically front runners for the championship. I think I can speak for you when I say neither one of us thinks that they are front runners.
No.
But if they won 50-plus games, you wouldn't feel necessarily the same pressing urge to make big changes or even medium-sized changes, depending on how you define it. This question that we're going to get more into matters if for no other reason than not wanting to see panic moves that actually overcorrect certain things that don't need that much fixing and maybe make you worse in the process.
Let's get into that next, because there is a real question here. The Lakers felt like a bad team last year. The vibes made them feel like they were significantly worse than they actually were. That said, they are a team with major issues. Plenty more to unpack on this. Plus, Andy, democracy at work. That's next.
Locked on Lakers is brought to you by Game Time. And several years ago, some friends of mine and I, we went to go see LL Cool J at the now defunct House of Blues. It was a really last-minute big group decision. There may have been like a dozen of us going to this thing, and we could not figure out how to score that many tickets, so we ended up buying them from a scalper. We should have realized the idea that he would have like a dozen tickets was a red flag, and it was. They were fake. And through some totally unrepeatable random luck, we managed to get into the show. But after that experience, I'm like, nope, never again. I don't want to be stressed out buying tickets for my favorite events. And you don't have to, because of Game Time, it's the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all these sports, music, comedy shows, and theater near you. And with killer deals on last-minute tickets and the best price guarantee, you can stop stressing over the tickets, start getting hyped for the fun. They got flash deals, so you save even more with exclusive in-app deals on select seats ahead of the game or event. And the Game Time guarantee means you will always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section or row for less, Game Time credits you 110% of the difference. It's the fastest growing ticketing app in the country for a reason. So snag the tickets without the stress using Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
We'll get to this, keep defining our terms here. But one of the things, Andy, that I find kind of, if there is an upside to the fact that the roster is currently not exactly the same, but, for functionally swap out Taurean Prince for Dalton Knecht, and it's the same. It's like the roster from last year. No two seasons are alike, and it won't be the same, and the injuries won't play out and all that stuff. If you really did want a laboratory experiment to try to determine how many games Darvin Ham, if you believe this, cost you, like, this is the way to do it. This is you have to run it back. In fact, I think they should make it so Gabe Vincent can't play at the beginning of the season and do some of these other things. Like, this is about as close of a controlled laboratory experiment into how much does your coach matter versus this other coach as you can possibly engineer in the NBA. And it occurred to me today, this is the upside to me. Like, now we get to have a much better feel for how much JJ Redick matters versus Darvin Ham. It's possible he makes it worse. I don't know, but we're going to get a chance to find out, it looks like now.
Well, I want to see the full roster version of this, and if that means accepting some junk science along the way in terms of my ultimate thesis, so be it. But you're right. I mean, the Lakers have determined through their interviews with JJ Redick, listening to multiple episodes of Mind the Game and The Old Man and the Three, and listening to JJ Redick do, calling the finals, all that stuff, that he is a really not just sharp basketball mind, but I think a very innovative basketball mind. That we haven't talked much at length, and maybe we'll get into this more deeply on a different show, but the two biggest name coaches that the Lakers have hired for JJ's staff are Scott Brooks and Nate McMillan. And they're two guys with a lot of experience. And, in the case of Scott Brooks, he's coached in the finals. They've both been around a lot of winning. Nate McMillan, I believe, won a championship as a player. These are guys that are both in the league. Like, you will not find two guys, I think, that were realistically available with more combined experience than those two. You will also not necessarily find two guys, particularly in the case of McMillan, that aren't necessarily thought of as modern. Like, neither one of those guys are thought of as cutting-edge basketball dudes. Again, especially McMillan. But I don't think that doesn't bother me. I actually like the hiring of the two of them, in part because I think more than anything else, JJ Redick needs experience in terms of the people surrounding him. But also, too, assuming the Lakers are correct, Redick's got a lot of the innovation down himself. He's got a lot of the vision down, and he just needs guys to help show him the ropes when it comes to implementing. And if the Lakers bet correctly on this, and if they didn't, most of this won't matter anyway. But if they did, then we may really start seeing the different value of just using guys properly, using them creatively, trying to coach to win, as opposed to the way we often talked about Darvin. It felt like he was trying to sort of avoid problems before they even presented themselves, and therefore would coach in a very defensive, not defense, but defensive.
No, defensive.
Way.
Right.
Yeah. So, if they made this bet correctly with Redick, that could theoretically make more of what is basically the same roster than Darvin did.
So, like you look at that, and if the Lakers are in fact at least have potential, 50-win potential, if JJ Redick is 3 wins better than Darvin, just the value of him, everybody can get say what there's a tremendous downside risk to the Lakers. I mean, again, injury to the Lakers won 47 games last year with probably peak health for LeBron and AD, peak what you could expect LeBron and AD to be able to give you, and now they're coming off an Olympic year. So, I mean, fatigue, injury, all of those things are very real concerns. There's no rule that says your supporting cast can't suffer injuries in consecutive years. Like, that's not like, people say, well, we got it out of the way last year. That's not how this works. Like, guys could get hurt again. I understand why New Orleans decided to hold on to next year's Lakers pick versus this year, thinking that they could be, that pick could come a lot higher in the draft than 17. But that said, if things break the right way, and you say, okay, with a better coach, we were a 50-win team last year, then LeBron is correct. You're not that far off from a championship. I don't know. I mean, I don't know what they can do to be better than Oklahoma City. Minnesota should continue to get better. Dallas, I think, has had a nice offseason. But, the Nuggets, at the very least, could have gotten worse. They have a big hole to replace with KCP, who makes. Oh,
they're worse right now. Whether they can overcome it is a different story. But
we'll see. Like Will was saying, they could end up, guys step up, but they've got a hole to fill there. And the Clippers got worse, losing Paul George, despite trying to fill spaces some other ways. Lord knows what's going to happen with the Suns. The Pelicans, they have a ton of question marks. The Kings, I think, could be pretty good this year. But, they were a 9 seed last year. And now you're talking about the Grizzlies coming back up. And there's a lot of competition. But that said, the Lakers to move up into at least a different echelon in the West, I agree with LeBron. It doesn't require massive changes to the roster. It requires good luck and some strategic filling of holes.
Well, we saw during the 2023 run of the Western Conference Finals, there was some luck in the way the brackets broke, like Memphis missing Brandon Clark and missing Steven Adams, correct? Like they were missing a lot of size, and that played very well for a Lakers team that is huge and much more experienced than Memphis. They were able to utilize that size advantage over Golden State, who we've seen has been on, despite winning a championship in 2022, age and other things started, punches and whatnot started catching up to them very, very quickly. So things broke well for him, but also too, you had Jared Vanderbilt there to offset some of the issues defensively with Austin Reeves and D'Angelo Russell together as a tandem, that were not able to be offset with Taurean Prince or with Rui Hachimura. You needed Jared Vanderbilt there. He made a difference. We don't know yet, can that difference, if, say, you run that lineup next year, maintain over 82 games? I don't know. I think they're a ways off from being a champion and championship team. And I'm not trying to come up with consolation prize trophies. I get the idea that this is what the Lakers want to be shooting for, and it's what they should be shooting for. But you don't want to get desperate, overcorrect, and have a different version of the Russell Westbrook trade. It's really important not to do that.
And I mean, and I also think too that it's a reminder of the frustrating nature of this spot of, if they'd played a different team, could they have won a round? Sure. Denver's still a bad matchup for them or whatever. A different team, maybe they went around, but realistically, they weren't better than Minnesota, Oklahoma City, Dallas, as it turned out, some of these other teams. Like they weren't better. Like they maybe you catch a break, you're competitive, you're not better. But you're not, but like sometimes I almost feel like for fans, it's easier if you're just terrible. Like, cause then you know what you are and you know like where the path needs to go. This is that sort of, it's better than the, you know, sort of the horrible middle in the sense that like you're good enough to be an interesting and exciting team, but everybody kind of knows, like you say, like we're not title good yet. So if you're somebody who only really judges this stuff by titles and you're saying like, you know, a chance to make the conference finals if things break right isn't an interesting enough or good enough place to start, you might, Andy, want to sign a petition to fire your president of basketball operations. And if that's the case, have we got news for you? That's next.
Real quick before we get to democracy in action, one other thing I wanted to point out in terms of things that could make a difference next year. Max Christie was signed to a contract that shows he's going to be playing. Mm-hmm. And I know I spent a lot of last season complaining that he was not playing. And Max Christie, to be clear, is not a panacea. Like he's not the cure-all to everything this team was missing. But when you look at specific things that they needed along the wings, alternately more shooting, more defense, definitely more rebounding, Max Christie can help a lot along those lines just in terms of what we saw last year. Again, he's not a cure-all, but whether you're talking about an upgrade over experimenting too much with Cam Reddish or, you know, trying last year against really all logic to make the Spencer Dinwiddie, Gabe Vincent backcourt work, even though there was no evidence it was working, nor any pressing reason to try to make it work, when a guy like Christie actually would have more directly addressed some of the needs that were really hurting the Lakers. I want to make sure it's clear, too. They should be looking to try to improve.
Nor are we condoning how they got themselves into this position. You know, no. I saw somebody tweeting at you because, you know, calling you a company guy, saying that, you know, you're just, you know, you're sticking up for Pelinka. We're sticking up for Pelinka. Pointing out the position the Lakers are in is not the same as endorsing the path they took to get here or endorsing the work of the GM that got them here. But you know, you and I have never been part of the do something crowd. Just get it done. Get it done, Rob. Get it done, Mitch. Because that's just not how the world works. And, you know, if you strike out enough times, that's reflective and you need to evaluate those things. But like, I would also like the Lakers to be able to make moves. I also wish they had not put themselves into this box, but they're in the box. And our job is to talk about the box.
Right.
And inform people of the box. And as the movie says, tell people what's inside the box.
I mean, noting that the Lakers are in a legitimately difficult position to try to significantly upgrade the roster, that's not sympathy for Rob Pelinka. It's an honest assessment of what is going on. I think there's a very good chance that the Russell Westbrook trade, which we have emphasized over and over, that was a Rob Pelinka decision as much as it was a LeBron AD clutch decision. One way or another, it falls on Rob. We've also both said many times, Jeannie could do better than Rob. Jeannie, quite frankly,
better than Rob.
Should do better. But the assessment's the assessment.
Probably won't do better than Rob. But
despite democracy.
Right. So if you're somebody who's frustrated by this, and I don't know who the people were who started change.org, but I can only imagine that this is exactly what they had in mind when they're like, you know, we need to create some sort of platform where people can really get together and make their voices heard for causes and things that are important and will change the world. Mm-hmm. And one day, someone's going to harness the power of change.org to demand, and I love this, my favorite title for a petition ever, demand the dismissal of Robert Todd Pelinka Jr. Which, by the way, I didn't know. I didn't know he was, I mean, I'm assuming this is correct. If he's a junior, I didn't know.
Yeah, I looked it up on Wikipedia. He is, in fact, a junior.
Oh, well, Wiki would know. As general manager of the Los Angeles Lakers.
It feels like a pretty easy thing to research. I know Wikipedia isn't always right, but this is pretty basic stuff.
But it's so delightfully formal.
Mm-hmm.
Robert Todd Pelinka Jr. As the GM, our general manager, it says this was started by a fellow named Nas S, and there is a tab for media inquiries. Our general manager, Robert Todd Pelinka Jr., seems to be diminishing the vigor and brilliance our team once held. If you want him gone, you can sign the petition to have him removed as the general manager of the Los Angeles Lakers. This is delightful.
Interestingly, not also the vice president of basketball operations, just the general manager. Like, he's not going to take 2 titles from Rob Pelinka. He's not going to leave Rob Pelinka without a job.
That's me.
He's just saying, strip away this one title.
First, it's like when Andy Reid is the coach and the GM. It's too much for anyone, even
exactly.
a brilliant guy. Right?
One or the other. First of all, I want to make it clear, Brian and I have not signed this petition. Nor
I'm not a. Are you a petition signer?
You know what?
I am not.
I used to be more of a petition signer until I started realizing once you sign a petition, these mother bleepers never leave you alone, and you hear from them constantly. So now I will see petitions put in front of me for causes that I believe in. I'm like, nope, not doing it. Like stuff that I often find really important and serious. I'm like, I'm not doing it because I don't need all the emails and texts. And I know you people are going to bombard
and
me.
I've become very distrustful of people too, and like what they're doing with my information and all these other things. And like, I just don't trust, like my standard answer, and this is true, is like, I certainly am not signing a petition outside the grocery store. Like I do not sign, like, you want to tell me how to get to your website, I'm going to do research. Like, I don't want to unwittingly sign the petition of somebody who seems like they're, trying to keep, dogs and cats from being, euthanized unnecessarily. Like, okay, I'm all for that. Or, school lunches, or picking things that are generally seen as good, and then you find out that like the organizers are like awful people, and all of a sudden I'm on their petition list, and everybody knows. And why do you support these horrible people? So I go home and I do my research, but then, like you say, like I don't need to be on somebody's data list either.
No, these petitioners outside grocery stores, outside everywhere, are one of the many reasons that I never leave my house without having earbuds in. That is my instant reaction to all the people trying to get me to sign anything.
Earbuds and
I don't even take no. I don't even take the phone out. I just point to the earbuds. I'm on a call. I can't do this. I'm not signing up for some phone provider or cable provider. I'm not signing this very important petition. I'm on the phone.
I also answer. That's another one I answer. Like, who is your cable provider? Who's your phone? Yours. I'm with you guys already. I'm already with you guys.
Yep.
If you would like to try to drive a strong point home to Jeannie Buss that you do not approve of Rob Pelinka, Nas, as we record on Tuesday evening, is about 62 signatures short of his goal.
Oh, I imagine by the time people hear this, he'll have already hit that 1,000.
Right.
Look,
he wants 1,000. We're at 938.
Sign it if you want. I mean that seriously. Sign it. Just know it's not going to get him fired.
If the Russell Westbrook trade didn't get him fired, this 1,000 people signing a petition.
Right. But if you want to sign it, I sincerely encourage you to do it, because if for no other reason, the Lakers are a passionate, very loyal fan base. And if you attend any of the games in person, it is very expensive. Just having the cable necessary to watch the games it bumps up the price of your package. So you have every right to sign this petition. Just know it's not going to get him fired.
Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where you can go hang out with over 24,000 subscribers who are all motivated to make their voices heard. We will be back. Keeping an eye on.
We'll put, by the way, in the show notes, we'll put a link to the petition.
Sure. I mean, again, you get your frustration out however you want. And I actually am fairly sure of all the petitions you would sign, Nas is probably least likely to sell your personal data to anybody else. So
I'm not making that claim.
I'm here. I'm gonna think the best of Nas.
I'm not making that claim.
Okay. Probably smart.
I have my earbuds in when Nas walks by too.
We will see everyone tomorrow.